political, education for community members to develop as organizers, provide healing and grounding exercises for them to sustain their work, and a space where we will be supported of active grassroots campaigns and connect people to movements. Our teaching today will be led by Miranda Sheffield and Fabian Pavon, two of our very own homegrown Pomona organizers. They will be leading us in the power and history of the teaching. Also, to help us get through the anxiety and grief brought on by the pandemic, we will have community healers Jenny Ray Vidal and Grace Gonzalez lead us in some healing and grounding exercises. Thank you so much, Miranda and Fabian. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for having us and having me and Miranda. And so to start off, I would really, is it okay if I share my screen real quick? Thank you. And then I just dropped something in the chat for you all. And this is another resource for those of you that want to know what land you are on. All you have to do is text your city and your state to the number that I dropped in the chat, and it'll text you back whose land are you on. So if you all could please do that right now, I would really appreciate that. And then start, once you find out, please type it in the chat. Like for example, Pomona, California, and that's Tongva Quiche land. So if you could please do that for us, so that way we all acknowledge the land that we are on, I would really appreciate that. But first of all, I want to start off with some introductions with the panelists that are here before you today. So we're all going to take turns, and I will go ahead and go first. So this is just so that you all can get to know us a little bit better, right? So these are the questions that we're going to be asking the panelists up here. And so basically, what do you consider to be your homeland? In what ways does this place show up in your home or life? How has this cultural slash ancestral homeland supported your well-being during COVID-19? So I'll go ahead and go first. So what do you consider to be your homeland? My homeland is Pomona because I feel like I'm a caretaker here in Pomona of the land, of the people, of the community. But another homeland that I feel that is very sacred to me is Michoacan, which is where my jefita's from. She's from Michoacan, and we have Purepecha roots. And so every time I go over there, I always feel like I get recalibrated. I get to kind of unwind from the society here in the U.S. And I get to really unplug but reconnect with myself and with my surroundings and with my family and my gente out there. So that's one of my homelands right there. And so in what ways does this homeland show up in my home or in my life? I think it's with the cultura, with the food, with the dichos, with the stories that my mom tells us. I think with the Virgencita as well, it shows up in my home and my life. And so how has this cultural slash ancestral homeland supported my well-being during COVID-19? Well, I got to give it up to that ancestral knowledge that has been passed down for generations. Right, we just got through like a really cold season, and I got sick, and so like all those remedios that were passed down from my homeland, through generations down to me, they really help. Like that caldo de pollo really helped. That tea with lemon and honey and como se dice, and ajo, garlic. That's how that stuff really supported me during COVID-19. So I gotta give it up to that. So that's just a little bit about me right there. But I would really love to hear from the rest of the panelists. I'll go ahead and popcorn it off to Miranda.
Hey everyone. Thank you for setting this up for us, Fabian. This is really good exercise for us to kind of ground ourselves in. I think for me, because I definitely do recognize no matter where I've been around the world, I always acknowledge that P Town is my home, but I also definitely feel, as being, knowing my ancestral history and the Black folks that are connected to me, I definitely feel very nomadic in a sense. You know, like I'm from the South, so I feel like very much so a California Southern girl. That's how I like to describe myself. And then if I were to take that just one more notch higher, I definitely feel like definitely spiritual in the ways of how I describe homeland, and that, you know, it is here with us, and it's also, you know, other ways of how we show up and are able to be a part of what homeland feels like. And I think we can transport to those spaces when we need to. Um, and in what ways does this place show up in your home and life? Well, let's see here. In what ways does it show up in my life? Um, I definitely am really big on like photos, and I think being able to have representations of, you know, places that make me feel at home are always really good for me, and representing that is important. And the last question was, how has this cultural ancestral homeland supported your well-being during COVID-19? Oh my gosh, like I think the pandemic has like always been like an opportunity to explore that this is not a first occurrence, and it's probably not going to be a last occurrence, right? And so for me, it's like definitely having me dig deep and think about the ancestors that have come before us, and acknowledging, you know, their own journeys that they've had to take in times of crises on a national and larger scale. But then also, you know, acknowledging that no matter what, you know, there's always culturally, I recognize that there's always protection around us because of, you know, us being connected to the ancestors in that way. So I think those are the things that have helped with my well-being, and just grounding myself in a lot of COVID and this pandemic has forced us to really have to go within ourselves. So I think that's really what I've been focusing my time and energy on.
Awesome. Go ahead and popcorn it off to somebody, please.
Oh, I will popcorn to Jenny.
Miranda, you must have felt me like reaching for the mic because what you said really resonated with me. I consider to be my homeland and foremost is my body, which is probably why I teach movement. But my body is my home, and where my body feels most at home in this moment is, you know, because I see these like these circles of my body, and then beyond that, this place, Pomona, where I live, where I grew up, early childhood, where I came home to after moving around. Homeland, and I also have that P-Town pride as well. Um, how does it show up in my home and in my life is my whole family has this P-Town pride, right? We're always about how we're to live here. Able to be that this kind of leads into my third this time of having to be isolated from other people home in the land, um, and it's the nature that is here that has had kind of had an opportunity to breathe a little bit without so much of our so walking around outside, paying attention to the birds and trees, the parks and the hills, and so that being connected with nature has really been a big element for me in feeling at home in this place when oftentimes home is filled with people, people in our homes. So finding home out. So I'll pass it off to whoever wants to go next.
I can connect from there. Jenny Ray, some of your starting resonated with me when it comes to what do you consider your homeland? And there's different layers of that. Homeland, when I return home in a physical space, that's for me Chino. But I've also moved and been in different spaces for extended periods of time where home has also resided within me and myself. Chino is where I grew up and is home, yet those are my foundations to community, to my identity, to my voice, to how I express myself, to how I carry myself, and those pieces of those home are always with me. And or if there's times that I've needed to return home and I'm not home, I bring those elements back to me. So that kind of goes back, that goes into in what ways does this show up in our home, in our life, knowing that various community, cultural traditions, songs, medicines are always there to support me and have me. And I always carry those medicines with me, however it looks and whatever that may be. Similar to the land itself, land is home. Land is part of our life and part of our cycle and living. And so finding home within the plants, the animals, outdoors, I consider outdoors another home for me. And so those are elements that I bring in with the plants and having the natural sunlight come in every day, acknowledging the sun, waking up with, having this routine in union with nature and Mother Earth itself, waking up when the birds wake up, various things, and those are all parts of home. And that kind of connects to the third question of how has the cultural ancestral homeland supported during COVID? Traditionally, my kapuli, my community of cultural traditions and stuff, we've had to not do that in regards to ceremonies and to be safe, to be respectful of community. And so having to carry on those practices on my own when it comes time to shifting of seasons, when it comes time to shifting of various cycles that we might be going through, when it comes down to that low time of needing to connect with outdoor medicine, take myself for a hike, take myself for a walk, go sit outside. And those things have really stood out for me during this time. And knowing that, again, I can always return to it. Having the community and having the people interaction is nice in establishing that, but also those are things within me. And that's been the reminder during COVID-19.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into this real quick. We're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the significance of a teach-in. But before we can actually give, we're going to give an example, a couple of examples of teach-ins and their significance. But before I can really go into that, I have to start you all off with this. I have to start you all off with some truth. So from the beginning, right from the beginning, from the root, from the core of what is the United States of America, you will find that right at the root, institutionalized racism, sexism, homophobia, and classism is deeply embedded into what made this country be what it is today. And the institutions that were created thereafter, after the Constitution of the United States, after the Declaration of Independence and all of that, the American institutions that were created after those documents were meant to hold up the interests of those with racial and class privilege or rich white men, right? And so one of those American institutions that we're going to be talking about today is the institution of education, the American education system, but more specifically, the institution of higher education. And so, like I said, these institutions were created to hold up the values of those rich white men. And those values have to do with capitalism. It has to do with racism. It has to do with sexism. It has to do with classism. It has to do with imperialism. All of these isms that we will get into later on. And so I'm going to give one of the examples that I'm going to focus on has to do with UC Santa Barbara. And so one of the reasons why I'm focusing on UC Santa Barbara is because a lot of my research, I actually went to UC Santa Barbara, and a lot of my research was simply on student activism at that school. There's a long history of student activism there, right? So I just want to give you all a little bit of statistics. So, with teach-ins, we don't necessarily, teach-ins if our education system actually served the people and not the economic interests of capitalists and imperialists, we wouldn't need teach-ins, right? If our education system actually educated us and actually taught us valuable information other than information that benefits the rich ruling class, we wouldn't need any teach-ins. But we need teach-ins, and that's why we're here today doing this teach-in, right? So again, starting off with some statistics. In the late 1960s, students with Spanish surnames, so Latinx students, made up an extremely low 1.7% of undergraduate students in all institutions of higher education in the United States. Black and Chicanx, Latinx students collectively at UCSB made up only 1.1% of the student population, and that was in 1968. And this made UCSB what some scholars call a predominantly white institution. You've heard, some of y'all might have heard of Hispanic serving institutions, right? Well, this is a predominantly white institution. And so overall at that time, Black and brown folks were being killed at the front lines of Vietnam War at rates that were disproportionate to their enrollment at universities, as well as their population of the United States. So they were getting slaughtered, they were getting killed in the Vietnam War. They were actively being recruited to war, whereas they were not at that, that same energy when it came to recruitment did not translate when it came to the university. And so there's this history professor at UCSB. He actually was one of the co-founders of the history department at UCSB. His name is Robert Kelly, and he wrote what is called a majoritarian view of the history of UCSB. So he wrote his own history of UCSB, and it was from the perspective of rich white men. So yes, this viejito fell, he made his own version of history. He wrote it from his perspective. He wrote it from the perspective of those with racial and class privilege. And so at that time in the 50s, after after World War II, there was this common sentiment among the elite ruling class. They wanted to promote nationalism, white nationalism, after World War II. They wanted to basically instill nationalism into the students. And again, they did this through the institution of higher education. So this quote right here was the general sentiment of people like Robert Kelly, people with racial and class privilege. Deeply stirred by the struggle against barbarism, alarmed as well by the Cold War against Soviet communism, which aroused the same emotions created by the anti-Hitler crusade, it seemed self-evident to post-war academics that there be a requirement for undergraduates to study Western heritage, ideas, and culture. So they made it a requirement for students going through the university system to learn about white history, to sympathize with Europe after the war, to basically instill or assimilate us into white society, right? But you know how Black and brown people do it. We say, hell no, check this out. So this is a little bit about some Black student activism at UC Santa Barbara. So the Black Student Union, they took over North Hall, which was the computer center. And at that time, not everybody had laptops, right? Everybody had to go to this center to utilize the computers. The Black Student Union, they kicked out all the employees early in the morning and they took over that building. They barricaded themselves in the building. And the reason why they did that was because they faced all kinds of racism at UC Santa Barbara. Many of them were exploited for their athletic abilities. They were given promises by coaches saying like, oh, hey, we'll give you a full ride, full scholarship, just come play with me. They would allow them to play, but they would not give them the financial aid that they promised. So those students had to end up dropping out. A lot of times they would have, when they would play other schools, and again, this is in the 60s. So, by that time, in the late 60s, we were, quote unquote, integrated. We weren't segregated anymore, but they would often play teams in communities that still practice segregationist policies. The coaches allowed the white students to spit in the food of the Black students. The white athletes would eat before the Black athletes. The white athletes were allowed to steal some of the Black athletes' equipment, and the Black athletes had up to here with it. They teamed up with the Black Student Union and they took over the building. And these were some of their demands. To fire the racist football coach who would actively call them the N-word while they were out there while they were out there practicing football. They also demanded the creation of a Black Studies department. They also demanded more Black people in administrative and managerial positions, so high positions. They wanted to be reflected. They also wanted the hiring of a Black female counselor for EOP, or the Educational Opportunity Program at that time, which was tasked with making sure that they recruited more students of color. And so that's just one example of activism at UCSB, where these students took over an entire building, and eventually they were kicked out and they were all arrested. And so here's just an example, and here's one example of Chicanx, Latinx student organizing at UCSB. So this is another view from the bottom, just like the Black students. And so basically the students, they also joined the Black Student Union, and they helped out in their efforts of taking over North Hall. They also occupied different spaces, and some of their demands were to hire more Chicano counselors, staff, and faculty, to create a Chicano Studies department, to create a Chicano Studies library, to recruit more Chicano students, and to create a Chicano EOP and a centro, or a space where Chicano students can feel that they were reflected and supported at that time. And so the demands that the Black and the brown students made, they felt that they took a standstill because they would meet up with the administration, and the administration would hear them and then sometimes leave the meetings early, and it was a very unproductive meetings. And so because the students felt that they were not being heard, they went ahead and they took over what's called the University Center. They kicked out all the employees in there, they barricaded themselves in there, and they began to teach themselves, right? Because they did not want they did not want to contribute to capitalism. They did not want to contribute to imperialism. They did not want to contribute to racism. Now they created what was called a free university, where they got some of the more progressive professors to teach them things about the Vietnam War and about imperialism. They got them they got to teach each other Black history. They got to teach each other brown history. They got to teach other things, other economic systems other than capitalism, like socialism, like communism, right? But in essence, they were able to create a democratic form of teaching, where they had a say in what they wanted to teach, and not just be told what they should be taught based off of what those with racial and class privilege decided that they should be taught. Because under a system of capitalism, you put profits over people, and so everything drives that in all of the American institutions, including education. Those of you that are in school right now, think about why they're putting such an emphasis on the STEM programs, or on the STEAM programs. That's because the US benefits from people being able to know how to build bombs and weapons and tanks and things like that, right? So in this free university, where the students took control of their own education and decided what they wanted to learn, what they felt was important to know, they taught themselves. And this is the power of a teacher. We take up space, we decide what we want to learn, we decide what's important. And so the United Front was formed. And so the United Front was comprised of the Black Student Union, the United Mexican American Students, and Students for a Democratic Society. And they taught themselves, and they did this until Ronald Reagan called for a state of emergency at UC Santa Barbara, and they went in there, the National Guard went in there and took everybody out. And so now I'll leave it off to my colleague, Miranda.
Okay. And we're going to breathe together, right? Because my wonderful co-host here, we were working with time. We had to get in all of that, and you got it in. You made sure you got it all in. So I love that you made sure it was impactful and everything. So that was beautiful. I appreciate you, Fabian. And so just to bleed that into this, I want to first, because this is balance, I'm definitely all about the healing and the teaching, the healing and the teaching. I just want us all, just to take a collective deep breath together. I can't see y'all, but I just hope, right, just take a deep collective breath. So I want to lift up some what Fabian put out there was a historical moment that took place, in the 60s, particularly a time between 68 and 69 You know, there was so much uprising, so much going on. So him being able to lift that up is extremely important. And there were so many students, like many of y'all, who were leaving home. We talked about homeland, and we're going into these institutions that were violent and are still violent, and we're taking up space. And we're saying, hey, we're not indivisible. We're here. We want to be able to bring ourselves into these spaces. And this is not what we're asking, but this is what we're demanding. And I think it's important to highlight what one of the most beautiful things that was said by Fabian was that a lot of these students, in the process of them going to an institution to get taught, they found space to teach themselves. And I know that many of you, you know, we're going to find ourselves having these opportunities down the line to bring each other together to talk about different issues. But I want to really make sure that y'all know like how important it is that, you know, all of what we're talking about brings it together, how much that knowledge is within. We're going to talk more about that down the line. But I want to lift up last year in the summer of 2020, you know, the summer of like uprisings in honor of Breonna Taylor, in honor of George Floyd, in honor of Ahmaud Arbery, and in honor of all of our trans brothers and sisters that have also been out here being murdered by the police. I want to uplift that right here in our backyard, we were also putting forth our own social movement. We were also saying and standing up to injustices right here in our city of Pomona. And I don't want that to get lost as we're taking a moment to teach ourselves about how to stand up to different injustices. There's people right here in our community that are really rooted in doing the work. And we have to see ourselves first as folks that are part of these movements because it's a leaderful movement. It's not one person. We can see the beauty in the history of the struggles that have come before us and see and learn from them. And one of the things that we must always remember as we're looking into these teachings is that there is no savior when you're looking into movement. There is a collective, leaderful people that are helping us to liberate ourselves. So I think that is extremely important as we ground ourselves. And what was happening last year is that a lot of people hit the streets, right? A lot of us, you know, took up space by having consistently showing up to the marches and coming out last year because we knew that what was happening in George Floyd was directly connected to what was happening in our own community with the Pomona Police Department. And it's not just solely about police violence because it's also about economic violence that takes place daily in our community. It was also about the fact that we're also not getting the education that many of our folks deserve and are worthy of, and being able to acknowledge also the violence that comes because of our brothers and sisters who are part of the LGBTQIA community are not being able to show up as their full self because of everything they continue to go through. So what we did last summer, was really trying to uplift these intersections and to be able to show like, hey, what's happening with this street vendor is just as much violence to what's happening right here with the folks who are arresting our people daily, you know, and being able to show that as us as Black and brown folks, you know, our struggles may show up a little differently, right? But at the end of the day, we're up against a system of oppression. It's a very system that continues to want to, you know, show that we should be against each other, right? But the reality is that it's really truly in us. So I think it's important to talk about how we organize these circles, brought ourselves together to put forward our demands, and to be able to tell our local leadership, our local officials, that we were worthy of more than the current living standards that we were getting. And I just want to acknowledge, I think that, you know, when we're talking about these teachings, and I hope that we're able to get this more into the work that we do, right? Is that I know for myself, I have stories. I've been here in 20 years. I went to Pomona High School. The best of the best come from there, just to let y'all know. Go Red Devils. But I I just want to make sure that y'all know that the thing about it is each of us have stories of different types of violence that we have experienced in community with each other, right? There's different types of harm that we've had to talk through. There's loved ones that have been directly impacted by the Pomona PD, right? There's other folks that have been directly impacted because of the housing, disparities that take place. Okay? So there's all of these different things that are happening. And I think being able to show their intersections is extremely important, and being able to acknowledge that we've had to internalize a lot of those things that have happened, and showing how they're connected to these bigger systems of oppression. Go to the next slide. So, both of us are going to tag team on this. We want to ground y'all in knowing we put this up here. It's important that we know some of these key terms as we're moving through these teachings. And one of my favorite, the person that I feel who has grounded me in my teaching has always been Asada. I used to have a Asada taught me sweater, but it got in some way. So here we are. But I feel Asada, the one thing that I've always loved about when I read her autobiography was that she talked about the importance of study. She talked about the importance of like being in community with your brothers and sisters and being able to sit down and study together, and also being able to make that process accessible to each other, to where no matter where you are intellectually, no matter where you are, depending on how much you're getting, we all are able to come together to understand these terms. So up here we have nationalism, we have imperialism, capitalism, horrible, patriarchy, because we can't forget about the role that all this plays, particularly when it comes to gender. It's not separating our struggles. I love what Fabian put up here, majoritarian storytelling, if you want to hit on that.
Yeah, definitely. So just how I talked about, with Robert Kelly, he wrote his own history of UCSB from the perspective of the chancellors, or in other words, principal, like kind of like the principals of the school and stuff like that, right? He wrote the history from the perspective of those with racial and class and gender privilege, and so that's what a majoritarian story is, right? And that's what we get a lot in our school systems, from the perspective of those white rich men. But with the teachings, we center counter storytelling. And so with counter storytelling, it's stories from your experiences, from our experiences, from the experiences of people of color, from women, from LGBTQ folks, and working class people. And so those are the stories that we're going to highlight here. So that's just a little bit about that.
This is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy to be in space with all of y'all. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go over these terms, because I think the thing about it is that, there's a lot of things going on where we're all experiencing these things, and we just define them in their own way. And that's okay. And they don't always have to be these terms, because we know that we all have examples of what they have looked like. But I also just wanted to, show that when I really think it's important just to make sure racism on here, this is a example of what it means as how it describes stuff. I really want folks to know that racism is directly about power. It's about power. So when we think about, are black folks able to be racist? No, because we don't have the majority access to power. So it's always very important when we think about terms of how we use them and how we define them, Like, I can't be racist as a black woman because I don't have access to power in the ways that a white man does, right? So those are important.
Awesome. And then so another thing, I just want to circle back to teaching. So when we center our stories, like I don't want to say that I speak for all types of different groups, right? So then we want to add we want to add some, you know, kind of like how I said with the teachings at UCSB with the Third World Liberation Front. You know, they wanted a more democratic education system. They wanted a say in what they were being taught, right? So we're going to give you all a say in what you want to be taught. Now, we put a list of different topics that we, you know, thought that, you know, based off of our knowledge, we put together a list of topics that we could definitely focus on for you all for the rest of the year. And so we want you all to kind of, you know, take a poll or vote, you know, as to which one should be our next topic. And so we want to make sure that you all have a say. In addition to that, in addition to the poll, you know, we also want you, if you could drop in the chat, maybe there's a topic that's not here, but you're interested in it, you know. So after you do the poll, please feel free to take some time to drop any topic that you want to learn about in the chat, and Miranda and myself will do our best to address that topic. So go ahead, John, please feel free to do the poll and have a say in your education here in this teaching, not like at PUSD. So we still need a few more people to finish voting. Trans histories, got it. And again, if you don't see a topic here that you would like, please feel free to put it in the chat, whether it be in English or Spanish. Spatial entitlement, perfect. I wrote a paper on that. All right. So it looks like people want to learn about Black and Brown solidarity, one of my favorite topics. Awesome. I appreciate you all.
That's going to be good.
Yeah, I love it. We're modeling it, I think.
Absolutely. You already know what time it is out here in these streets. And now that the poll is done, and thank y'all for sharing that, we're definitely going to put this down and consider all of this. And I think y'all for putting what y'all put in the chat, you know, the racism and public health, trans history. I think what we were able to do is find different ways, you know, to intertwine these into some of these more larger, you know, focuses and stuff. So this is good.
Definitely.
Great.
Well, all
Appreciate
right, y'all. I think that's pretty much it for our portion right now. So thank you all so much. Thank you all for being here. We have a great crowd. Thank you, Miranda, for co-teaching this with me. It's an honor.
Absolutely. And I just want to, because it's just a part of it, is to show like two of my favorite books that I think will be good to talk through is Sisters Outsiders by one of my favorite people, Audre Lorde, and then Wonderful Asada Shakur, you know, for us to be able to talk through. So I look forward to being in community with y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, we still have the healing portion. So yeah, but right now we're gonna go ahead and take a break, and I'm also gonna give our interpreter a break. But thank you so much, Miranda and Fabian. I'll be giving you all some updates in English and in Spanish. So tune into the English channel to hear this part of the program. You'll return back to the Spanish channel if you need interpretations afterwards. For the helium portion, when it begins, to start, we encourage everyone to let me know in the chat how you felt, what you think about this teaching, what did you like about it. Yeah, just how did you feel? I feel like building community is very important, and this was, you know, just like another step in doing that during the pandemic. Um, and I'm gonna read in the chat. I'm gonna read the chat, like whatever y'all have to say, any feedback. Ahorita si pueden venirse al canal de inglés, y les nomás quiero saber cómo se sintieron, si pueden decir en el chat qué les gustó del teaching, qué aprendieron, algo que no sabían antes. Muchas gracias a Miranda y Fabián por ser nuestros primeros presentadores del teaching. Arlene feels empowered. I went to Pomona High, so yeah, I feel Miranda, that we were out here. Claudia says, excited to build community. Thank you for creating this space. You created this space by being here, so that's really important to acknowledge. And props to you for coming and building. Don't be shy. Go ahead and drop your feedback in the chat. How did you feel? Are you excited for the healing portion? And right now is also a good time for you to grab your water or something, anything that you need. We'll be back. We'll start with the healing portion in a bit. Misty says, I love the background information. It's definitely important to know about our history. And I like that this teaching focused on action. I look forward to attending more events like this. Monse, yes, the teaching definitely got me riled up, ready to throw it down with the government. For real. Also, yeah, okay. Yeah, Lynette, let me know when you feel ready to come back as well. Miguel says, I love sharing the knowledge portion of the Zoom webinar. Excited for the healing part because healing is a major part of community organization as well. Yes, yes, it is. That's very important. Taking care of yourself is really important. Juliana, really enjoyed this portion. Definitely learned a lot. Okay, Lynette, you're ready. Before we do start, I do want to add a call to action that you cannot participate. It's a petition, and I will give some context. Kade dropped it in the chat, so you can go ahead and open it. So currently, there's an effort to bring primary elections to Pomona. Wait, Lynette, sorry. Are you on the interpretation side already? Are you able to translate? If you can, please do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Si necesitan servicios de interpretación, otra vez abajo de la pantalla pachuren el círculo y el lenguaje que quieran. Entonces, español sí necesita interpretación y ahí va a estar el ENET para interpretar lo que les voy a decir. But yeah, there's a lot of cool comments in the chat, so thank you for sharing. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you about this action that you can participate in. So currently, there is an effort in the city of Pomona to bring primary elections. And then the young people of Pomona Students Union have taken a stance against this because this is a form of voter suppression and it makes it harder for marginalized communities to engage in politics. So please sign the petition. It is in the chat. God, if you could please put it again, or anyone, or I could even do it. And yeah, reach out to us to help stop the efforts. And shout out to Pomona Students Union. They do a lot of really cool work, and specifically PSU members Orlando, Samantha, and Josue for this efforts to work on this campaign. But yeah, go ahead and open that petition, read more on it, and you can fill it out when you can. But without further ado, we will not resume the interpretation in Spanish. Oh, Lynette's already there. But yeah, we can now do the healing portion, which I'm really excited for. So Jenny, Ray, and Grace, you can take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brenda, Lynette, Miranda, Fabian, everyone, all of you for being here, sharing your thoughts and feelings in the chat. It's very powerful. And as mentioned in part of the teach-in, there's also this healing. The teach-in takes a lot of energy, community work, and we also need to go back and fill ourselves back up. So that's the intention of kind of pairing these two together with it. And I, just again, I am Grace, and I will be facilitating the healing portion with Jenny Ray. I'll be guiding us through some meditation and breathing. Jenny Ray will lead us through some movement, gentle movement, and we'll close with some sound meditation. So for this time, we ask that you create the space that you need. Maybe you're sitting at a desk, maybe you're sitting at a workspace. If that's the case and you feel like you want to relocate, please feel free to do that right now. Maybe you've been sitting and want to move a little bit. You can relocate, adjust your lighting, bring in cushions, blankets, anything near you that you feel will allow you to relax and ease and come into kind of the self-care environment wherever you are. And in the next bit of this healing, if at any point you need to readjust that setting, by all means, take the time to adjust and continue creating your space. So give you a little bit of time to move around in that. Once you find your spot, you can choose to sit or lie in that spot. Again, adjusting if that decision changes, and settle into that space. You can choose to gently focus on something straight ahead of you, or take a soft, slight closing of the eyelids by focusing on something towards the ground. You may even choose to gently close your eyes. And in this space you've chosen, in this gaze you've chosen, begin to notice your natural breath in this moment. Letting it be as it is and acknowledging for what it is. Maybe you begin to notice the sound of your breath, the movement of your body space as you take these natural breaths. Or even notice the temperature change as you inhale and exhale. Continue to be mindful of your breath as we shift into imagining sending these breaths to various spaces within our body. We are a whole container. Our body carries us to do so many functions and so many things. So we're going to take our breath, our focus in this kind of body scan meditation to acknowledge those places, give them attention, give them gratitude. Beginning with your feet, wherever they are, if pressing firmly into the ground, if seated. Maybe the edges of your feet connect with the ground if you're sitting cross-legged. Maybe it's your heels that are in contact with the ground. Wherever your feet are landing, send your breath to that space. Think of the things that your feet do for you and thank them. Moving to our sit space, our hip space, the base of our spine, and feeling a sensation of strength and rootedness. They say the spine is a very powerful part of our being. So giving an acknowledgement to that base, that foundation. Moving that focus in your breath to the chest space, the shoulders, the neck. Acknowledging any support in a seat or on a bed or on a couch. Maybe freely sitting tall. Acknowledge where your body lands on its own. And breathe into that space. Maybe feeling a little bit more relaxation there. Next, moving to your lower face, your jaw, your teeth, your mouth, your nose. Noticing how they land naturally. And if you feel tension of the jaw, tension of the teeth, any clenching, that's okay. Acknowledge and make an adjustment. Maybe slightly opening the mouth. Taking the corners of your lips to slightly turn them up with as if a smile is coming across your face. Taking your breath back to your eyes, leaving them where you've chosen them to be. The focused gaze with a slight close or a full close. All the things your eyes see, allow you to see. With the recent pandemic and a lot of Zoom time, giving acknowledgement for them for being with you this whole year in these transitions. And then coming back to the center of your forehead. We'll take a few deep cleansing breaths. We've intentionally focused on various spaces of our body, but now we'll do it as a wave, moving from the feet all the way back to the forehead with a deep inhale. Exhale, going back down to meet the ground. Maybe imagining these deep breaths as the ocean waves, as the ocean comes up. Taking it to the tip of your forehead. Exhale as if an ocean wave is setting back. Feeling a grounding with your exhale. Each round of inhale and exhale, creating a little more breathing space and relaxation into the body space. Go ahead and take 2 more on your own. When finished with your breathing, take a moment of stillness to recognize the shifts you may feel physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Give gratitude to yourself and sharing that pause moment of checking in. And when you're ready, taking the time to slowly transition back to the screen as we shift into the gentle movement with Jenny Ray.
Thank you, Grace. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm feeling relaxed and also like I have just a little bit of energy in my body that needs to move. So the mini sequence that I have for us today can be done in a comfortable seat, but also I'd like, if you can, those of us who can, to stand, just to get some energy moving through our body. So if you'd like, come up to a stance, bring your feet about hips distance apart, and continuing on with this feeling of this acknowledgement of this land that we're on, this land that we're sharing. Just take a moment to rock forward and back on your feet. And then find center, grounding down through your legs, pressing your feet down into the earth and reaching up through the top of your head. You can just let your arms relax here by the side. Focusing on notice that breath Grace was talking about, with the inhale coming up the body and the exhale drawing down the body. In this way, you can imagine running a circle of breath or a circle of energy through your body and paying attention to this energy growing down through our roots. And from this rooted place, from this solid foundation, we can begin to find some movement in the upper body as well. But let's take a little bit more time grounding down through the legs. Just maybe imagining here that as we grow our roots down, these roots go down into the earth and then begin to branch out, right? Branch out underneath our homes or the spaces that we're in and begin to connect with other roots, right? The roots of the people who are all here in this virtual space. Let's take a moment to feel into that foundation, this network of roots, this community that we're holding here today, and establishing this foundation for our teaching, healing together with this solid rooted nature. And continuing with the wave of breath moving up and down the body, we'll begin to use our arms now. As we inhale, reach your arms up to the sky. And as you exhale, just bring them straight down. And we'll just inhale, arms lift up. So we're moving breath through the body, and exhale, arms down. And that as you inhale, up and drawing arms down. Inhale, arms up. Maybe you're breathing deeper now. And as you exhale, arms come straight back down. Notice the feeling in your body as you do this. Inhaling up. Exhaling down. Keep going. Inhaling up. And exhale down. Now, if you have a lot of energy, some of the things that we talked about were really activating. So you might have a lot of energy that needs to move in your body, and that's great. So what you can do is move here with a little bit more intensity. Maybe it looks like this. You know, that's not for everybody, but it's certainly for some of us. And just begin to kind of get into the feeling of connecting with your body and connecting with the energy that you have right now. And just moving that energy through. You can exhale, kind of flick off the fingertips. Inhale with like that intensity that's appropriate for you. And we'll have 3 or 4 more here. Inhaling up, exhaling down, inhaling up, exhaling down. And last one, inhaling up, exhaling down. And now just allowing yourself to find stillness. And in this stillness, maybe your eyes are closed. Maybe they're focused, but focus on an object in front of you. But just try to look at one thing if your eyes are open. And bring your attention to what's happening inside the body. Notice the sensations, feeling inside your body. Breathe into those sensations. And as you notice these sensations, try to meet them without any judgment, seeing them how they are, exactly how they are. And still feeling into this rootedness, into your foundation. Witnessing your body as it fluctuates and moves through these different sensations. And then finding stillness. And in this way, the body finds this process of release and healing. And then we have another wave, breathing in, breathing out through our roots, grounding energy down. And now what we'll do is just shake the body a little bit. So we can just start with the hands. If you're not used to this, it can kind of be a little different, a little weird even, but let me tell you, let me remind you actually, what do we see animals do when they experience something that was really like triggering or very emotional in their body? What do we see? They immediately shake their body off to get that tension out of their body. So here we are, just shaking the hands first. You can shake the arms. And as you do this, breathe still. Feel rooted down through your legs and just jingle your arms around. Maybe you're just shaking. Maybe you want to take one foot and shake it and then the other foot and shake it and just surrender to this bounciness. Let your arm bones jangle around. And you can do this really soft and easy, or you can go crazy with it, you know, depending on whatever kind of energy you have in this moment. There's something here for you. Shaking out any stress from your week or month, from the year, whatever you got. Just imagine that as you shake here, you can shake it off your body. And we're going to be here for about another 20 seconds. So just try to keep up with if you can. And again, you can even do this in a comfortable seat if you want. Breathing, shaking out your shoulders, maybe even shaking out your head. About 10 more seconds. Shoo, shoo, shoo. And you really want the body moving here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then stop. Ground. Find the ground. Find your roots. Find your breath. Maybe allowing your eyes to close or soft focus on the object in front of you. And begin to soothe your body with breath. Feeling the sensation within your body. Again, noticing without any judgment. Noticing how your body is responding. Movement to the stillness. That dance of energy around you, within you. And then we move into the third movement. might be a little difficult, but you can just kind of move with less range of motion. I invite you to stand up just for this. So staying grounded down through the feet, the lower body is anchored, rooted. Just begin to swing the arms from side to side. We're swinging arms from side to side, turning your chest, turning your shoulders. As you do this, you can let go of your hands, let go of your fingers, so you're not creating fists to limit the arms, but you're just allowing yourself to swing back and forth here. Low belly draws in towards the spine. Keep letting your arms swing as you breathe, as you find your roots. And again, this can be done really fast or slow, whatever pace and intensity is right for you. Keep breathing here. Keep feeling into this. Notice if the body wants to rock. Notice if the head wants to turn too, like you could look behind you. Maybe the knees bend. Good, we're here for about another 10 seconds. Just lean into this rhythm, this movement, feeling into the body, staying grounded for 3, 2, 1, and turn to stillness. If you feel dizzy, send your roots down into the ground. Remember who you are. Remember the network of support underneath you, your community, this land, your homeland. And now take a big breath in through your nose. Exhale through the mouth. We'll come into a seat, finding your chair or place to sit at. And we'll just inhale, arms reach up to the sky. And exhale, hands come down. Draw your chin towards your throat. Take your head to the right, center, and then to the left. Center. Inhale your and exhale, look straight forward. Good. Keeping your right hand down, reach your left arm overhead and bend over to the side. You can look up past the elbow, forward or down, breathing into your side body here. Take another big breath. And exhale. Inhale up and over to the other side, exhaling. Breathing into the side body, staying rooted down through both sitting bones. Good. Coming back to center, hands down. Roll your shoulders a few times here. And then we'll begin with our hip opener, taking your right ankle up and over your left knee. Flex your ankle here. And we're opening up this left side, kind of pressing our knee down towards the ground. Pressing down through your sitting bones, down through your roots, opening up the left side hip, the right side hip. Breathing in deeply here. And exhaling here. You can look down, maybe see a triangle between the thighs and calf. See if you can make your spine almost straight. It has a little curve to it, and keep that curve if you can. Pressing up through the crown of your head. And while we're here, notice your breath. So as you inhale, imagine that you can expand your belly and your chest. So your inhale expands and your exhale contracts. Everything pulls back. Inhale expands. And the exhale contracts and centers you. A couple more rounds like that. See how big you can make your torso. Maybe you can blow up like a balloon on your inhale. And in the exhalation, there's the gentle contraction of everything drawing back to the rhythms and cycles, and the space in between. And as we're here with our breath in this hip opener, we'll take one more inhale here. And exhale, maybe you decide you want to go a little bit deeper and you begin to lean forward. Breathing here into the hips, the low back, the low belly expanding on your inhale. And your exhale, maybe you go a little deeper. Finding that fine balance between effort and ease, where you feel this stretch and you're right there on the edge. And maybe the inhale takes you up off your edge a little bit, and your exhale brings you back down. And you can play here as you inhale to come up and exhale to come down. And we're making our way towards our final meditation, towards the closing of our night. So now, as we turn the corner, we're settling our energy down, slowing down, and let's begin that process just by settling down the breath, just by slowing down your breath and making your breath deeper, more intentional. And on this side, we'll take 2 more breaths. And 1 more breath. We'll inhale to come back up. Take your right foot down to the mat, and we'll it's now your left comes up and over. And flex your ankle, feeling that knee draw away. Finding your breath here, the big expansion of your belly and chest. And the exhalation as everything draws closer. There's the inhale to your and the exhale as you empty. Stay here with the feeling of your body. So sometimes when we slow down and hold poses like this that are, kind of deep, our mind will wander off to something else. But see if you can try to keep your attention here into this process. As we breathe here, as we focus on our left hip, we're also creating some space in the low back as well. And if you're ready, you can come forward, hinging forward into your hips, chest coming towards your shin. And you may want to hang the head down, and I'm inviting you to not do that. Instead, to lengthen your head forward, to reach away with a straight line between your tailbone and top of your head. You want to keep the length in the neck available so that we're not pulling on the low back in a way that's creating any pain. We have a few more breaths here. The hips, the low back, the legs, of course, all related to our roots, our connection with the ground beneath us. So, taking the time tonight to honor our roots, honor our connection, our foundation, our community in this way. And take one more big breath here. Let's come up. Inhaling, release your leg down. Good. We can lean back in our chair and kind of wiggle our legs a little bit. Make yourself comfortable. Make our way to our final meditation. Grace will be playing the singing bowls and have a sound meditation for us. I invite you to get comfortable for that, because if you can allow your body to completely relax for this meditation, then I think that you'll have a deeper experience, more nourishing experience. So allow yourself to get comfortable, maybe even lay down on your bed or whatever you need to do on your couch. Lean back and listen to these beautiful sounds of the singing bowl.
Thank you, Jenny Ray. As she said, find a space of relaxation, maybe even laying down, bringing in pillows. I will be sharing the sound of the singing bowl and rattle. The sound does pick up very well. So before you fully find that relaxing position, I suggest to kind of bring the volume down first. And as I begin playing, adjusting the volume for what fits best for you on your end. Okay, so it will come up loud, and the sound carries vibrational energy. And these various elements and energies are soothing and uplifting. So embrace however the sound resonates with you. Okay, I'll go ahead and start. And that is the end of our healing portion. Jenny Ray.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We wish you a very restful sleep as you get ready for the week. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for helping us to build community. We'll see you at the last Sunday of the month in March. I don't have the date in front of me, but that's typically the rhythm that we'll be doing this. We'll be here. We're open to your suggestions and your feedback. And we love y'all. We're happy to be a part of this, and we're happy to provide this space for you. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for being our community, our neighbors, our friends, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Seeing all the love in the chat. We appreciate you all. Hopefully we gave you some good things to think about this week, and also some roots, some tools to tap into your roots, your breath, your community, your homelands. Yeah. Much love to you all. Good night. Good night. I don't know if any other presenters want to also pop on to say goodbye, but you're welcome to. Big shout out to Lynette for translating for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Fabian and Miranda. Thank you, Brenda, for facilitating such a beautiful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Kare, for holding down the tech, and Jesus for everything you do, all of the organization behind the scenes that you do. Appreciate you both as well.